Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, we're welcoming Devin Daly. He's the CEO and co-founder of SpinCar. Devin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Glad to be here. Really appreciate you having me on.
Well, Devin, you are number 2 in a 7-part series as we're leading up to the 2020 Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, and we're going to have a lot to talk about as automotive retail has been forced to reinvent itself. And I wanted to have you on the podcast because so many dealers are realizing that they've created barriers on their websites for consumers to get the information they wanted. The car hasn't been the star. It's been a form game or a pop-up form game like whack-a-mole. And during these COVID challenge times, I'm trying to help dealers rethink that their virtual showroom should be staffed and it should serve. So with that in mind, let's talk about first your primary product, that 360 spin technology, which is more than just spin. Have you seen dealers increase their interest in your merchandising tools now that COVID has landed?
Yeah, great question, Brian. And yes, we certainly have. I think dealers are realizing that you can't rely on your, stud salesperson to make your monthly volume target, that your website and your merchandising is really your kind of last standing salesperson with foot traffic down or potentially, immaterial. And so being able to merchandise as effectively as possible is really critical in these times.
Well, one of the things that I've been coaching dealers, and it's been working amazing, is that we need to reduce the CTA buttons. We need to eliminate forms and move to conversations, and we have to provide the information that consumers need to have a collaborative discussion, especially if they're not able to get to the showroom or now they don't need to come to the showroom. SpinCar provides pinpoint merchandising. And so for dealers who've missed this, not only can the consumer spin and go in, but you've highlighted certain parts of the vehicle to help distinguish features. What percentage, Devin, of the consumers who interact with a gallery click on one of those hotspots to learn more about the car?
Yeah, it's about 75 to 85% of website visitors will actually engage with that feature merchandising that we're doing, right? I think the reason that's important in today's day and age is vehicle features are becoming increasingly complex, right? It's hard for a consumer to understand the difference between Mercedes collision avoidance and BMW's accident mitigation system, for example. And so by embedding that educational content directly in the VDP, you're helping consumers answer those questions when they're shopping from home.
And are those hot spots activated based on trim level details, or are they activated on a more broad, like model-based model year feature?
Yeah, so for the majority of major US OEMs, we're actually activating that through build data. And then a dealer has the ability, if there's something that wasn't included in the feed file and prompted to be captured as a close-up image, they can actually go in and manually add that feature.
Great. Now, what about cars like used cars where maybe there's a special type of rim that was installed on the car? How do dealers call attention to maybe a dealer added accessory or a factory added accessory that was not maybe on the original build?
Yeah, great question. So directly in the application, the merchandiser, marketer, photographer can shoot an image of that, and then they can add the label manually, and they can also actually start to introduce MSRP. We all know it's a problem in the industry. It's hard for a consumer to understand why one 3 Series might be $30,000 and a seemingly competitive 3 Series is $35,000. By starting to better merchandise features and include the original MSRP of those features, you can help educate that consumer on why that vehicle is more expensive.
Yeah, I bought BMWs for years, and I know like a cold weather package wasn't an insignificant add-on, but you wouldn't be able to see that necessarily by looking at the car.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are able to see it, it's typically buried, down below the fold. Very rarely does it have a price associated with it. And almost never is there any explanation of what that package or feature includes. So again, a consumer is forced to leave the page to Google what cold weather package is. And at that point, the dealer's potentially lost that person as they're tagged by an auto intender or conquested by one of that dealer's competitors.
Devin, one of the things, as I've seen your product evolve, it's almost like you've had a crystal ball. We're obviously hearing tons of stories of dealers who have now embraced remote retailing or shop from home retailing. We're hearing stories, relatively new ones, about F&I managers doing Zoom meetings, anything to bring the showroom to the customer, whether the tech is perfect or not. But you had the foresight to add into the photo gallery, into the SpinCar suite, F&I merchandising. For dealers who've never seen that before, could you give them a little thumbnail? What is it? And again, are consumers engaging with some general education about F&I products?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So we think one of the biggest misses in the sector is that F&I typically represents, I think the NADA average is 53% of a dealership's annual net profit. Yet the first time a consumer hears about and is educated about F&I offerings is after a 4-hour protracted negotiation with a salesperson. They get, thrown into the F&I box and they say, no, 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 no. By starting to introduce F&I merchandising directly on the page earlier in the browsing process, the consumer becomes warmed up to those F&I products, and we see a significant lift in F&I attachment rates because of that.
And we've seen some studies from Cox and others where F&I products, say in a digital retailing tool, when introduced earlier, and end up generating a higher uptake. The thing I like about the SpinCar product, knowing that dealers' ability to merchandise their own website with F&I product offerings is often limited to creativity or writing. If somebody signs up for SpinCar, they can activate that whole F&I education panel. It's built right into the photo gallery, so they don't need to make space on the SRP or VDP. And now with assisted remote selling, the salesperson can even click on it for the consumer or ask the consumer to click to actually discuss. So it's almost like an embedded F&I menu now in the photo gallery tool.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And our point of view on this is dealers have done a good job with, merchandising vehicles, right? They think about, which vehicles are in the showroom, which vehicles are in the front lot. Yet F&I product always ends up buried back in the F&I office. Again, by bringing that to the front, you're able to educate consumers about it earlier and drive that F&I interest. The other benefit of the F&I merchandising solution is that it allows the F&I manager to understand which F&I products a consumer engaged with on the website, so they could do more kind of customized, tailored menu building. So if I know Brian looked at tire and wheel 14 times, I know that's a product that he's very interested in.
Oh, that makes sense. As we, again, are focused on what new things are happening in automotive retail, and especially the impact of COVID, it's clear that some of the functions that a showroom visit relied on, like inspecting damage on vehicles or even looking at the undercarriage. I know when I was buying classic cars to restore, that was one of the biggest things, to look underneath to see if there was rust or some damage. You mentioned to me prior to today that you've been adding enhanced features for dealers to tag damage and even to provide some visualization for undercarriage images. Could you explain to dealers what you're doing to be more transparent and allow them to sell more cars through remote retailing tools?
Sure thing. Yeah, so our opinion on this is effective merchandising is really about replicating the physical experience that somebody has when they're shopping for a car in your lot as closely as possible online. And there is still some contingency of buyers that want to put the vehicle up on the lift, especially up here where I am in the Northeast, and look at, is there rust or is there frame damage? And there's also buyers that want to look at every single nook and cranny to see if there's a gravel ding. So by using our in-app damage tagging functionality and our undercarriage imaging, you're giving the consumer the ability to do that really easily from the comfort of their own home.
That's great. And I think that these are types of considerations. These are the conversations that I want to bring to dealers because maybe they haven't thought about that. And if they want to lean in and provide a formless website experience, a more interactive, collaborative experience, transparency is also built on trust. And so better photography, better disclosure on any dings or dents or scratches, undercarriage imaging all makes sense. One last thing I wanted to talk to you about in the merchandising category before we briefly talk about marketing and retention. What about accessories? How has SpinCar thought about providing dealers with some tools to sell accessories like a roof rack or a side rail or bed liner? Is there any hope or strategies to give dealers better visualization, education tools to upgrade vehicle sales and increase profits?
Yeah. So our thinking on this, right, is with projected lower volumes, with car sales potentially declining or projected to stay markedly below the original 2020 projections for the foreseeable future, dealers need to maximize the amount of profit on every unit sold. And so one way to do that is through more effective F&I merchandising. Another way is through promoting accessories earlier in the process. So same sort of use case that we talked about F&I, as opposed to having accessories be an afterthought, start introducing the accessory products and get somebody warmed up and excited about those aftermarket add-ons earlier in the process directly on the VDP page. Accessories are a huge potential profit channel for dealerships that embrace them at 40% gross margins on average.
Well, that makes sense. So in summary, dealers who really want to embrace remote selling or remote retailing need to simplify their websites, get rid of their forms, serve customers when they come to the website, and make sure the car is the star. The car can't be the star if it's 60 photos and they're trying to remember where the photo was. If those photos don't talk about damage or being able to highlight certain features or explain or educate. So I see an interactive chat tool with a remote retailing solution, and SpinCar makes sense for modern retailing. But one of the things that dealers may not be aware of is that you're putting together not only your digital marketing suite, but at DMSC, you're going to be talking about some additional retention tools because you can follow, retarget, and engage consumers after they leave the dealership's website today. How's that working for dealers on a return on ad spend?
Yeah, it's been hugely efficient from a return on ad spend standpoint. I mean, generally retargeting is one of the most efficient uses of ad spend because inherently somebody that's visited the VDP, which are the only people that we retarget, those are really low funnel shoppers. Then by using our sort of personalized creative engine, we customize what the display ad looks like. So Brian may get performance-centric creative, Devin may get safety-centric creative, and by layering in that additional personalization, we see about a 9x higher click-through rate and 40% higher post-click conversion, which again makes it a really efficient use of ad spend.
And I want to clarify what Devin mentioned. It's retargeting of engaged shoppers. So I've been a vocal advocate for retargeting if the retargeting is retargeting folks with relevant content based on engagement. For years, dealers were just retargeting everyone that came to their website. And of course, they didn't realize 30-40% of all the website traffic was for service. And these are people who just were coming to the website to get a phone number or address or the hours. They already had clear brand intent. But what I like about the SpinCar strategy is you're weighting the engagement level with a car, knowing what they focused on, and then presenting relevant ads. So this is dynamically created. So Devin, is it true if I look at a Ford F-150 and I'm looking at the engine and someone else is looking at, say, towing or cargo space, the retargeting ads could look very different?
Yeah, absolutely. So your ad, if we've denoted you as a performance buyer, may have an inlay of the engine photo, or we may highlight in the ad creative that it's 265 horsepower, for example, whereas that other person may get something about, safety rating or an inlay of the, crash test rating, for example. So yeah, it's totally personalized to what that consumer's done on the website.
Wonderful. Devin, when a dealer is hearing this podcast and saying, I really need to make the car the star, but I have an existing photo service and they're thinking of switching, what does that process look like?
Yeah, it's a relatively straightforward process. So they purchase from us a prepackaged hardware bundle. Everything's kind of pre-configured, logged in. So that'll get shipped out. And about 2 days later, you'll receive it. You can open the box and start shooting immediately. We handle all of sort of the technical implementation. It's very straightforward. We establish a bilateral feed relationship with your inventory management system and add our API to the website. We work with all the major US photo providers, inventory management systems, and dealer websites.
And how long, if somebody is following your best practice, how long does it take for them to shoot a car to get that inside and outside SpinCar experience?
Yeah, really depending on how many close-up images they take and if they do in-app damage tagging and if they're tagging a lot of damages in the application. On the low end, it's about 2 minutes. On the high end, it's about 5 minutes. So that's one of the big value props of the product, right? Is it allows you to be a lot more efficient in that photography process, right? We have countless stories of dealers that have 2 photographers servicing their lot. They adopt our process and they're able to go down to 1 photographer because it's become significantly more efficient.
And again, we have to go back to the why behind it. The car has to be the star. If we're going to do remote selling, the car has to be the star. It has to be interactive. It has to allow a remote salesperson to guide a consumer through the vehicle, through the different features. And now that you have accessories and F&I merchandising options, the dealer can do as much or as little as they want. Obviously, dealers who are more committed to remote selling might invest more in that photography upload experience. Would you agree with that, Devin?
Absolutely, Brian. Yeah, it's our firm belief that successful digital retailing is really predicated on effective, transparent, educational merchandising.
Devin, as we look forward to the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, which is going to be July 12th, 13th, and 14th in the beautiful Napa Valley, and by then all dealers and I'm going to need a glass of wine as we reemerge from automotive pause. What are some exciting things you're working on that you'll be sharing at the conference?
Yeah, so we're really excited to announce different ways that you can access our F&I content, so other entry points to kind of merchandise those high profit products that you're offering. One of which is after somebody submits a lead, for example, we can send out an automated response that says, thanks for submitting your information. We'll have somebody that'll be in touch soon. Now that you've selected a vehicle to test drive, would you like to learn about potential protection plans and merchandising that content right there? The other capability is the ability to merchandise F&I products post-sale pre-delivery. So after you've completed the transaction with somebody, but before you've actually delivered the vehicle, we feel that that's really found business. That's a potential profit channel that dealers aren't really tapping into today.
That's great. I think dealers are open to anything that will lower labor costs, increase their net profit, and still be very smooth and seamless to the consumer experience. And I agree that the more that the car is the star, the more that we disclose damage, if any, the more that we disclose coverage and protection products early on, it forms a bond of trust. Devin, if somebody wanted to get a demo of the product, where's the best place to go for that or the best phone number to call?
Yep. So you could just go to SpinCar.com and add your information to one of the forms on the site, or you can simply call 315-766-2221.
Great. Well, Devin, I'm looking forward to having you on one of our merchandising panels because there is so much that our industry has learned about simplifying VDPs and SRPs. I've been working on a number of cases that I can't wait to share. If you're the first time to hear this podcast, you should know that every Monday I release a new podcast with an industry leader like Devin, technology breakthroughs, or just strategies to help dealers sell more cars in the digital age. So please take a look at all the back episodes. They're still relevant, active, and helpful. You can go to brianpash.libsyn, LIBSYN.com, the native broadcasting platform, or search the Pash On podcast on Apple Podcasts or Google Play Store, SoundCloud, or even Spotify. They're all syndicated for your listening. I look forward to sharing the latest breakthroughs at the upcoming Digital Marketing Strategies Conference with dealers. And if you're not registered, go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org and get registered today. We look forward to another exciting interview in our new series leading up to DMSC next week. So please join us on another podcast session.